Oh my God.
The storm came out of nowhere, not the kind you hear on the radio, but the kind that crawls over the horizon, low and dark, like it's hunting something out on the open range. One man pushed forward through rain that stung like needles and wind that knocked the breath out of his chest. He wasn't looking for trouble. He wasn't looking to be a hero. And yet behind him, something small kept following. A foal too young, too weak, barely tall enough to clear the grass. Every step the man took, the foal took one more. Through thunder, through mud, through fear. Why would the smallest foal on the range follow a single human into a deadly storm? That question would haunt this town for years. And when the truth finally came out, grown ranchers cried like children. This is one of those Wild West stories that stays with you. You're listening to MR, Last Ride, and this is the smallest foal on the range. Before we ride any further into this story, do me a favor, tap, like if you enjoy real Wild West legends with heart. Subscribe to MR, Last Ride, for true ranch stories, untold frontier moments, and legends passed down the hard way. And if this story moves you, even a little, share it with someone who still believes animals remember kindness. All right, let's begin. Out on the high plains, storms don't ask permission. They don't knock. They don't wait for fences to hold or plans to settle. They just come. That afternoon started too quiet, the kind that makes old ranchers uneasy. The sky over the range had turned a dull gray, flat like unpolished steel. No birds called. Even the cattle stood still, heads low, tails twitching, as if they could smell what was coming before it arrived. Eli Carter noticed it first while tightening the cinch on his saddle. He'd worked this land most of his life. Not because it made him rich. It didn't, but because it made sense. The rhythm of hooves, wind, and soil was simpler than people. Out here, things either survived or they didn't. Single quotes T. Eli wiped his hands on his jeans and scanned the horizon. Far off, a dark wall rose where sky should have been. Thunder rolled, low and distant, like something heavy being dragged across the earth. Not good, he muttered. The weather report had promised light rain. Nothing serious. But weather reports don't mean much when you're miles from town with nothing but grass, wire fences, and open sky between you and trouble. Eli swung into the saddle and started moving the herd toward lower ground. The wind picked up fast, snapping his coat against his legs. Dust stung his eyes. Somewhere behind him, lightning cracked so sharp it felt like it split the air open. That's when he heard it, a sound so small it almost got swallowed by the wind. A thin, shaky whinny. Eli pulled his horse to a stop and turned. About 30 yards back, near a broken fence line, stood the smallest foal he'd ever seen on this range. It was barely more than a shadow with legs. Its coat was patchy, still holding that soft newborn fuzz. Its ribs showed through when the wind pushed its side. One ear drooped slightly, like it hadn't figured out yet how to stand up to the world. This foal shouldn't have been alone. Mares don't leave their young, not unless something's wrong. Eli scanned the field. No sign of the mother. No movement. Just grass bending under the coming storm. "Hey there, little one," he called, keeping his voice low. The foal didn't run. That alone was strange. Most young horses spook at everything, shadows, birds, their own feet. But this one just stood there, shaking, eyes locked on Eli like it was trying to remember something important. Thunder boomed again, closer this time. Rain followed hard and sudden, fat drops that darkened the dirt instantly. Eli cursed under his breath. He didn't have time for this. The storm was moving fast. He needed to get to shelter, and fast. Taking a foal, especially one this weak, would slow him down. And slowing down out here could get you killed. Still, he didn't move. The foal took a step toward him. Then another. Mud splashed up its thin legs. It stumbled. caught itself, then kept coming. "Easy," Eli said, holding out a hand without thinking. Why was he talking to it like that? Like it could understand? The wind howled louder now, ripping through the grass. Lightning flashed so close Eli felt the heat on his face. His horse danced nervously beneath him. "Go on," Eli urged, waving the foal back. "Find your mama." The foal stopped.
For a moment, Eli thought it might turn away. That would have been better. That would have made sense. Instead, it lowered its head and walked straight toward him again. Closer, closer, until it stood right beside his horse, pressed tight against Eli's boot like it belonged there. Eli froze. In all his years, storms, stampedes, broken bones, nothing had prepared him for that simple, quiet moment. The foal leaned into him, shaking, not running from the storm, running toward him. "Don't do this to me," Eli whispered, more to himself than the animal. Rain turned to sheets now, blinding and cold. The ground softened underfoot. Another thunderclap hit, and the foal flinched hard, nearly collapsing. That decided it. Eli swung down from the saddle and looped a rope gently around the foal's chest. Not to bind, just to guide. He moved slow, careful not to scare it. "All right," he said softly. "All right, you stick close." And it did, step for step. They moved through the storm together, Eli leading his horse with one hand, steadying the foal with the other. Wind shoved at them like it wanted to tear them apart. Rain soaked them to the bone. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. More than once, Eli thought about turning back, about letting nature take its course. That's what ranchers are taught. You can't save everything. But every time he slowed, the foal nudged forward, stubborn as sin, as if quitting wasn't an option it recognized. Lightning struck nearby, too close. Eli felt the ground vibrate. The foal reared in panic, slipped, and went down hard in the mud. Eli was on his knees instantly. Hey, I got you." The foal's heart raced under his hands. It tried to rise, failed, then tried again. Mud caked its face. Rain ran into its eyes. And still it looked at him. Only him. Like he was the only thing anchoring it to this world. That look hit Eli somewhere deep. Somewhere old. He swallowed hard and hauled the foal up, wrapping an arm around its narrow chest. "Come on," he said, voice rough now. "You ain't done yet." They reached the old line shack just as the storm reached its worst. Eli shoved the door open and pulled the foal inside, his horse following close behind. The shack rattled under the wind. Rain hammered the roof like gunfire. Inside, the foal finally sagged, legs trembling so bad it could barely stand. Eli eased it down on a dry straw and crouched beside it, breathing hard. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then the foal stretched its neck and pressed its forehead gently against Eli's chest. Not by accident, not from fear, from choice. Eli closed his eyes. He didn't know why this animal had followed him. He didn't know where its mother was. And he didn't know that this storm, this moment, would soon drag an entire town back into a truth they'd buried long ago. All he knew was this. The smallest foal on the range had chosen him, and nothing on that land would ever be the same again. The storm didn't end cleanly. It never does out on the plains. It lingered through the night, grumbling like an old man who wasn't ready to let go. Rain softened to a steady drip by dawn, but the wind stayed sharp, slicing through the cracks in the line shack. Eli hadn't slept much. Every time he closed his eyes, the thunder came back, and with it, that look in the foal's eyes. The foal lay curled in the straw, sides rising and falling too fast. Too shallow. Eli crouched beside it again, his joints stiff from the cold. In the gray half-light, the animal looked even smaller than it had the night before. Mud still clung to its legs. One knee was scraped raw, red against pale hair. "You're not supposed to still be here," Eli murmured. Most foals that week didn't last a night, storm or not. Ranchers knew that truth better than anyone. You learn it early, or the land teaches it to you the hard way. Eli poured a little water into a tin cup and dipped his fingers in, letting drops fall onto the foal's lips. The foal stirred, mouth moving faintly, then settled again. Alive. Barely, but alive. Eli exhaled slow. He built a small fire in the iron stove, warming the shack inch by inch. Steam rose from his coat. Outside, the world looked washed clean but scarred. Fences leaned. Trees bent low. Somewhere out there, a mare was missing her young, or something worse had already happened. Eli stepped outside to check the range. That's when he saw the tracks. Small, uneven hoof prints led straight to the shack. They weren't random. They didn't wander. They followed his own boot prints almost perfectly. Step for step, he crouched, touching the ground. The tracks started far back, too far for a foal that size to survive alone in a storm. Unless it had been trying to reach something, or someone. Eli stood, jaw tight. "Why me?" he asked the empty land. The foal answered, not with a sound, but with presence. When Eli returned inside, the foal lifted its head weakly. Its ears twitched to the sound of his boots. Those dark eyes locked onto him again, and something strange happened. It relaxed, like it recognized him, like it had been waiting. Eli frowned. Animals remembered things, patterns, voices, hands. But this felt different. Too personal, too deliberate. He reached out slowly and rested a hand on the foal's neck. It didn't flinch. Instead, it leaned into his touch, pressing its thin weight against his palm. Eli's throat tightened. He hadn't let himself feel things like this in a long time. He fed the foal a little warm mash, mixing it carefully, patient as the animal struggled to swallow. Each small success felt bigger than it should have. Each breath felt borrowed. By mid-morning, the rain finally moved on. Sunlight broke through the clouds in narrow beams, lighting the wet grass like glass. Eli led the foal outside. It wobbled on unsteady legs, staying close, too close, brushing against his thigh like a shadow that refused to leave. That's when a neighbor rode up. Tom Walker had been ranching land adjacent to Eli's for nearly 40 years. He knew every animal, every brand, every story that mattered. Tom pulled his horse up short when he saw the foal. "Well, I'll be damned," he said softly. Eli didn't answer. Tom dismounted and crouched, careful not to spook the animal. "Where'd you find this little ghost?" "Found me," Eli replied. Tom looked up sharply. "What?" Eli gestured toward the range. "Storm. Followed me all the way through it." Tom studied the foal closely now. His expression shifted from curiosity to something heavier. "That don't make sense," he said. "This one's too small. Wouldn't last 5 minutes alone out there." "I know." Tom reached out slow. The foal stiffened immediately, stepping back, straight into Eli's leg. Tom froze. "Well, I'll be," he whispered. "It's attached to you. Seems that way." Tom stood, scratching his chin. "Any sign of the mare?" "None yet." Tom sighed. "That worries me." Eli nodded. It worried him too. They walked the range together, searching fence lines and low ground. Eventually, they found her. The mare lay near a washout, legs twisted wrong, eyes dull. Lightning strike. Quick, merciless. The foal didn't see her. Eli made sure of that. When they returned, Tom took his hat off. "Poor thing," he said quietly. "Poor both of them," Eli replied. Tom glanced at the foal again. "What are you going to do?" Eli didn't answer right away, because the question wasn't simple. Ranch life teaches you hard limits. You save what you can, but you don't pretend you can save everything. Weak animals cost time, money, energy. Most ranchers would make the practical choice. But this foal wasn't acting like a burden. It followed Eli everywhere. When he walked, it walked. When he stopped, it stopped. When he sat, it lowered itself beside him, pressing close like a guard dog made of bones and hope. Tom shook his head slowly. "I've never seen anything like it." "Me neither." By afternoon, word started to spread. A ranch hand from the South Road stopped by, then another neighbor. Folks didn't say much. They just looked at the foal, then at Eli, then back again. Some frowned. Some smiled softly. Some looked unsettled. Because people on the frontier believe in patterns, in signs, in things that don't always have names. And this felt like one of those things. That night, Eli sat on the shack steps as the sun dipped low. The foal lay beside him, head resting against his knee. Eli stared out at the range, jaw clenched. He hadn't planned to get attached. He hadn't planned to care. But there was this fragile, stubborn life that refused to let him walk away. And buried beneath, that was something else. a memory scratching at the back of his mind, a feeling he hadn't felt in years, like something from his past had reached out through the storm and found him again. Eli looked down at the foal. "You're not just lost," he whispered. "Are you?" The foal didn't answer, but stayed, and that was answer enough. The trouble with the range was that it gave you too much time to think. Once the storm passed and the foal grew strong enough to walk the yard without stumbling, silence settled in heavy and deep. The kind of silence that lets old memories crawl out of places you thought were locked tight. Eli felt it on the third morning. He woke before sunrise, the shack still dark, the fire reduced to embers. The foal stood near the door, ears perked, watching him like it had been doing every time he stirred. "You sleep at all?" Eli muttered. The foal flicked an ear and stepped closer. Eli rubbed his face and sat up slowly. His chest felt tight, not from the cold, from something else. He hadn't told anyone, not Tom, not the neighbors, why this whole thing unsettled him so much. He hadn't planned to either, but the range had a way of remembering for you. As Eli stepped outside, the smell hit him first. Wet earth, old grass, smoke. It was the same smell from another storm years ago, one he never talked about. The foal followed, hooves tapping softly behind him. Always behind him, always close. Eli mounted his horse to check fence damage, leaving the foal in the pen with fresh hay. Or, at least, that was the plan. By the time he reached the far ridge and turned back, the pen was empty. His stomach dropped. "Damn it," he breathed. Hoof prints, small and uneven, cut across the mud, headed straight toward the open range, toward the high ground, toward trouble. Eli kicked his horse into a gallop. The wind had picked up again, not a storm this time, but enough to carry sound. As he crested the ridge, he heard it, thin and panicked. The foal's whinny echoed, swallowed by distance. Eli pushed harder. He found a foal near an old trail, standing frozen, legs shaking, and standing 10 yards away. Coyotes. 3 of them. Low. Still. Watching. Eli didn't think. He shouted and fired a warning shot into the dirt. The coyotes scattered, melting back into the grass like they'd never been there. Eli slid off his horse and wrapped his arms around the foal, breathing hard. "You can't do that," he said sharply. "You can't just follow me anywhere." The foal trembled but didn't pull away. Instead, it pressed its face into his chest, heart racing against his ribs. That touch hit like a hammer, because it wasn't the first time something small and scared had clung to him like that. The memory came fast and unwanted. Another storm, another range, another life. Eli was younger then, less careful. He'd been riding fence during a flash storm when he heard crying. Human crying, thin and desperate. A child, a boy no older than 6, had wandered from a wagon train that never made it through the pass. Found alone, soaked, terrified. Eli had carried that boy for miles through rain and lightning, shielding him with his coat, promising over and over they'd be okay. They weren't. The boy didn't survive the fever that came after. People said Eli did everything right, that sometimes the land just takes what it wants. But guilt doesn't listen to reason. Eli hadn't held anything fragile since. Until now. He led the foal back slowly, never letting go. His hands shook more than the animals did. That night, Tom came by again. Word is the foal nearly got itself killed today, Tom said, sitting on a crate. Eli didn't deny it. Tom studied him a long moment. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "Maybe I have." Tom sighed. "Eli, you know what folks are starting to say." Eli didn't answer. "They're saying that foal didn't follow you by chance. That animals don't do that unless they remember something." Eli laughed dryly. "Animals don't remember people." Tom met his eyes. "You sure about that?" Silence stretched. Tom leaned forward. "Years back, before you bought this land, you ever help a mare during a storm?" Eli's breath caught. "How do you know about that?" he asked. Tom shrugged. "Stories stick around longer than people think." Eli stared at the dirt floor. Years ago, on a different ranch, during a brutal night storm, Eli had found a mare trapped in a washout. Laboring. Panicked. Alone. He'd stayed with her all night. Held the foal when it was born. Saved them both. The mare had been sold months later. Eli never saw them again. Until now. "You think this is that foal?" Eli asked quietly. Tom shook his head. "No. Too young. But animals remember kindness. And sometimes blood remembers too. Eli looked over at the foal, asleep in the straw, breathing slow and steady. The idea settled heavy in his chest. What if this wasn't coincidence? What if the storm hadn't brought the foal to him, but back to him? That night, Eli dreamed of thunder and small hands gripping his coat, of eyes looking up at him, trusting him completely. He woke with tears on his face. At dawn, a truck rolled up the dirt road. Town folk stepped out, men, women, even a few kids. They'd come to see the foal, to see the man it followed. Whispers spread. This wasn't just a ranch story anymore. It was becoming something else, something the town hadn't faced in years. And the truth, when it came, would shake them harder than any storm. By the time the sun climbed over the ridge, the truth was already circling the town like a restless wind. People didn't say it out loud at first. They just showed up. Trucks lined the dirt road near Eli's place. Folks leaned against fences, hats pulled low, voices hushed like they were standing in a church. Everyone wanted to see the foal. But more than that, they wanted to see Eli. Because the way that animal stayed close to him didn't sit right with anyone who'd lived long enough to know the range. Animals didn't choose people like that, not without a reason. Eli stood near the corral, arms crossed, watching the crowd gather. The foal stood beside him, pressed against his leg like it had been doing since the storm. Its strength was coming back slowly, but its loyalty never wavered. A woman stepped forward. Martha Hill, midwife, schoolteacher, one of those people who knew everyone's business whether you told her or not. She studied the foal, then Eli, her eyes narrowing just a bit. "May I?" she asked softly. Eli nodded. Martha knelt and examined the foal's markings. A faint white star on its forehead, a dark line along one flank. She inhaled sharply. "I knew it," she whispered. Tom stiffened. "You recognize it?" Martha stood slowly. "I recognized the bloodline." Eli felt his stomach tighten. She turned to the crowd. "How many of you remember the Walker Pass storm? 15 years ago." A murmur rippled through the people. Everyone remembered. A wagon train caught in flooding rain. Horses panicked. A mare trapped in a wash. And one young ranch hand who stayed behind when everyone else rode on. Eli swallowed. Martha looked straight at him. "You delivered a foal that night, Eli Carter." He didn't deny it. "The mare belonged to a traveling family," Martha continued. "They sold her later. But that foal, strongest one I ever saw born in a storm, was a filly. She grew. She was bred. And this," Martha gestured to the small foal, "is her colt." The words hit like a quiet thunderclap. Blood remembered. The foal wasn't following a stranger. It was following the man who saved its mother. A long silence followed. Then someone sniffed. Then someone else. Eli felt heat behind his eyes. He stared at the foal, at the way it leaned into him without fear, without doubt. "It followed me through a storm," he said hoarsely. Like it knew. Martha nodded. Because on some level it did. The crowd shifted. Men who'd buried sons. Women who'd lost babies. People who understood that some bonds didn't need words. That afternoon, a boy stepped forward. Small. Nervous. Maybe 7. He held out a handful of grass to the foal. The foal looked once at Eli, as if asking permission, then took it gently. The boy smiled. That smile broke something open in Eli's chest. Memories flooded back. A child's cry in the rain. Small fingers clutching his coat. Promises whispered into a storm that didn't listen. Eli turned away, wiping his eyes with the heel of his hand. He hadn't failed this time, and the town saw it. Over the next days, people brought feed, blankets, medicine. No one asked if Eli would keep the foal. They already knew. This wasn't about ownership. It was about completion. One evening, Tom sat beside Eli as the sun dipped low. "You know," Tom said, "people are saying this story's going to stick around." Eli snorted softly. "People talk. Not like this," Tom replied. "This one's different. It's got teeth. And heart." Eli watched the foal trot clumsily across the pen, tail flicking in the breeze. "What if I lose it?" Eli asked quietly. Tom didn't pretend not to hear. "You might." Eli nodded. "That's what scares me." Tom placed a hand on his shoulder. "You don't stop riding because you fell once." Eli breathed out slow. That night, Thunder rolled again in the distance. Not a storm, just an echo. The foal stirred, uneasy, and pressed close to Eli's side. Eli rested a hand on its neck. "I've got you," he murmured. And for the first time in years, he believed it. But the story wasn't done yet. Because the last ride, the one that would truly change everything, was still ahead. The last ride didn't come with thunder. That was the strange part. No black clouds. No howling wind. Just a clean blue sky stretched wide over the range, calm and honest, like the land itself was holding its breath. Eli saddled his horse slowly that morning. The foal stood nearby, stronger now, legs steadier, eyes bright. Its coat had begun to shine again, catching the sunlight like it was meant to be seen. Today wasn't about survival. It was about letting go. The town had gathered, not because anyone asked them to, but because stories like this don't end quietly. They need witnesses. They need closure. Tom stood near the fence, Martha beside him. Ranchers, kids, old-timers leaning on canes. Even folks who rarely left town had come out, drawn by something they couldn't quite name. Eli rested a hand on the foal's neck. "You ready?" he asked softly. The foal flicked an ear and leaned into him. They rode out together, Eli on his horse, the foal trotting beside him, toward the open pasture where the herd grazed. The grass swayed gently. Birds called overhead. No fear, just motion. Eli remembered another ride long ago. Another day that started hopeful and ended in loss. He'd spent years avoiding moments like this, convinced that loving something fragile was an invitation for pain. But the range had taught him something else too. Pain meant you cared. As they approached the herd, a mare lifted her head. Strong, alert, eyes sharp. The foal stopped. For the first time since the storm, it didn't move closer to Eli. It looked at the mare, then back at him. Eli's throat tightened. "This is where you belong," he whispered. The mare stepped forward slowly, sniffed, softly nickered. The foal hesitated, then took one step, then another. Each step felt heavier than the last. The town stood silent. When the foal finally reached the mare, she nudged it gently, protective and sure. The foal leaned into her chest the way it once leaned into Eli. And just like that, the circle closed. Eli stayed mounted, watching as the foal turned once more. It looked at him, not confused, not afraid, grateful. Eli tipped his hat. "Ride easy," he murmured. The foal turned back to the herd. No storm followed. The crowd didn't clap. No one spoke. Some wiped their eyes. Others smiled through tears. Because they understood. This wasn't a goodbye. It was a return. Later, as people drifted away, Martha lingered. "You healed something," she told Eli. Eli shook his head. "So did that foal." She smiled. "That's how it works." That evening, Eli sat alone on the fence, the sun sinking low. The range stretched out before him, wide, patient, forgiving. Tom joined him. "You gonna be all right?" Tom asked. Eli nodded slowly. "Yeah, I think I finally am." The storm that had taken so much from him years ago no longer owned him. Kindness had found its way back. And somewhere out there, a foal ran strong because someone once stayed in the rain. Eli rose, dusted off his jeans, and headed toward home. Another day on the range waited. Another ride. And this time, it didn't hurt to remember.